College Technology and Design Department. Today we're going to look at marking out and how we do that accurately by using two tools. First of all, the tri-square and also the marking gauge. With the assistance, of course, of the steel rule, which will be fundamental to most marking out in any area. So first of all, to mark out a piece, we're going to use a scale that we use in our Year 8 project when we're making a monoplane. Some pupils will also make biplanes with a double wing. It just depends on the time that they have when they're completing. So first of all, what we're going to do is to mark the surface here. So just to use the measurements that we do use during the Year 8 project, we'll mark a little mark at 80 millimeters and also at 122 millimeters. So that we have it sitting like so. We will then use the tri-square. Now the tri-square itself has a brass shoulder. This here tool is used to mark 90-degree angles from the edge of a piece of wood, and it's very, very useful obviously for getting accurate measurements for our biplane. Now you can see here the brass shoulder and the steel blade run perfectly at 90 degrees, and it allows us to ensure that accuracy across the work. In order to use this tool, what we do is we will place it in and we will slide it, the brass shoulder, along the edge, and that allows us to sort of move up and down, marking 90-degree angles where necessary. However, and what you will find with some of the pupils whenever they are learning the skills will be that they will sometimes forget that and it will sit at an angle like so. It's very easily done, but what the problem with that is, it means that their marking out is inaccurate and it's sit at an angle rather than a perfect 90 degrees. So what we will do is place this on. What we do encourage the students to do is to place their pencil on the mark first of all, ensuring the brass shoulder is nice and tight, and slide it into the mark that they require. And just marking across the piece. We will then do the same thing. Place our pencil on the mark and slide it in, ensuring the brass shoulder is nice and tight to the workpiece. And that creates us two lines. Okay, so that there is use of the tri-square. The other tool that we had mentioned here was using the marking gauge. Now the marking gauge, first of all, to name the parts, we have the tailstock, the headstock, the thumb screw and the marking needle. And this here is used to mark parallel lines from the edge of the piece of wood. Now the reason we're using this here is because we want to mark a depth down, because ultimately the wing that we're going to insert in the slot is 12 millimeters deep, and we want to make sure that this is marked down to 12 millimeters accurately and exactly on both sides. So to use this here, we need to loosen the thumb screw first so that the headstock slides freely up and down the tailstock here. Now what we want to do is then to place this on as so, and ensure that the flat edge of the steel ruler is sitting on the flat of the headstock here, and we want to ensure that that's sitting at 12 millimeters. Now the marking gauge can move, and it does move from time to time, so you need to just double check it once you've tightened it up that it didn't move, and in this scenario it hasn't moved, so we're happy to push on. So the way that we teach it in the college to the children and our pupils right across the years, but certainly at Year 8 level when we're teaching the skill at the very, very outset, is to teach them the idea of the motorbike action where you're accelerating using the handle rotating. So what we do is we encourage the pupils to set the marking gauge along the edge and to slide it backwards and forwards, just to get used to the motion that the marking gauge what it should feel like whenever you're using it. And of course we want the needle to mark the wood, so once they get used to the action, we will then encourage them to place the needle down towards the wood and just to drag it along. It makes a line that's probably almost invisible. Even on this video it will become very, very light in the way it's marked, but once we place the pencil into it, you'll see that it will follow very, very easily the profile that the marking gauge has left. Rotate your workpiece over. We want to obviously create the depth on the other side as well, and repeat the process. Get used to the skill, tilt the needle and slide it along so that we have the depth marked. And you can see, once again, very hard to see to the eye, but once you place it into the groove, it will slide along freely where you have made the marking out. Finally, what we want to do is we want to actually bring these lines over the edge. So very, very carefully slide those markers over. You can see you need to do is it's very easy to make mistakes at this stage by not bringing the lines over accurately. When you do that on both sides. And then we bring our tri-square back into play again, placing the brass shoulder tight against the top of the surface and sliding it in. It's easier sometimes when you're on a fixed surface to do that, to ensure that it doesn't move on us. There's our first line, once again in the second line, bring it up, rotate it round and repeat the process. Once again, don't worry about overlapping the lines, it's no significance, but because of course pencil lines can be removed. And you can see that completes the little slot. Now, of course, whenever you're marking out wood, it's very, very important that you mark where the waste wood is. Just to, in simple ideas like this, it's slightly less necessary, but to learn the skill of hatching off areas that are not used and are going to be removed, it obviously is a very, very sort of good practice to get into. So just very, very quickly at the very end, the area that's going to be removed will be hatched off, as shown. And that there allows us to make sure that whenever wood is going to be removed, that we don't make any errors. That completes the skill today for marking out. I hope that's been useful. Please tap into the rest of our YouTube videos to improve skills and the rest of the skills.